The Oklahoma City Thunder select Chet Holmgren from Gonzaga University.
What a pass. Giddey underneath for JRE. The reverse and the rookie-to-rookie action. SGA defended closely by Westbrook. Tough. Step back. Gets up the shot. Banks it in for the lead.
This is Dort. You're listening to the Uncontested.
What is up, and welcome to the Uncontested podcast, coming to you live Monday, September 26th, aka OKC Thunder Media Day. Basketball is back, folks. We are brought to you by the Blue Wire Podcast Network and DailyThunder.com. I'm your host, Jacob Niffen. I've got my guy, Justin Peabody, with me tonight.
Hello, everybody.
We've got Nick Crane, who was at Media Day today.
For those watching the stream live, I apologize for any facial expressions I make as I am in disgust watching the Dallas Cowboys on the side here.
I was deeply distracted by the KFC commercial that was rolling right when the stream started. That man was getting in on a chicken sandwich, and it looked good.
We also, speaking of disgusting, we have the man standing below the man standing below the window that Aegon Targaryen is looking out of.
He was doing a lot more than looking.
Hey,
spoilers.
There was one eye looking out that window. Taylor Peterson is here.
I watch one OU game with Jacob, and they lose, and all of a sudden he thinks I'm disgusting.
I'm not saying it's your fault, but it's kind of your fault. Gentlemen, content is here. We have waited and waited and waited. Media Day happened today for the Oklahoma City Thunder. And like we just said, our own Nick Crane was there. We did not benefit from getting individual interviews and get content hand-fed to us. So we are here to analyze what was said and work through kind of what we think, some of the quotes, some of the guys, some of the content. So this is really Nick's day to shine here. Oh, before we do that, though, I'm sorry. Handful of programming notes we need to let our listeners know about. Programming note number one, the thing I'm most excited about, if you're watching the stream, the uncontested hats are here.
Hey.
They are absolutely gorgeous. They came out incredible.
They're real and they're spectacular.
So nice.
If you ordered a hat from us,
he's here and he's perfect.
If you ordered a hat from us, it will be in the mail very soon as I get these packaged up and ready to go. If you do not get a hat and you want one, very limited run. You cannot order these online anywhere. We just had them made. So they're at my home. If you want one, get in the DMs of any of our social channels. Not hand stitched. Get in the DMs of any of our social channels. Limited supply. So if you want one, you got to get on it.
Think about it this way. They're kind of like the Travis Scott Jordans. They're only $35 now, but if you miss out, you may be paying quadruple the price on the resale market.
Very
We're
true.
gonna hit StockX, and it's going to be a hot commodity.
Yep.
$1,000.
If you buy an uncontested hat, I will also send you a new uncontested sticker.
Yeah.
If you don't buy an uncontested hat, but you still want a sticker, go drop a 5-star rating wherever you get your podcasts from. Write a little review, screenshot it, and send it to us. We will get you a sticker in the mail. You obviously have to send us your mailing address as well. Also, coming up, our schedule changes. We will podcast Wednesday night like normal. We will podcast Sunday night like normal. After Sunday, which Sunday is the 2nd, I believe Sunday is October 2nd. After that, we are shifting to regular season mode which means one show on Sunday nights and then a post-game podcast after every Thunder game.
Cannot wait.
I believe I have the first one. So you guys, in 7 days, will be listening to my voice and anyone who wants to hop on and co-host with me, talking about actual basketball in Oklahoma City Thunder jerseys. A week away, guys.
Woo!
A week
Cannot wait.
away. We also have some content with Daily Thunder dropping probably as early as next week. We have an uncontested Daily Thunder event that we'll be giving you guys more information about very, very soon. We're super excited about that. Lots of stuff in the works over here. I basically have a second job, which is just trying to run all this crap with the podcast. Wouldn't have it any other way. It is incredible.
I heard a stat today. I don't know if this is fully accurate. It's been 162 days since Thunder basketball, I think is what I heard. Isn't that bonkers?
Sounds right.
It's the
That is
longest
so long.
offseason we've had in years.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
That's a long time.
Not to
That's a
completely
long
transition us
time.
into everything, but the players mentioned that frequently today, Nick.
Yep.
Like I heard a lot of that.
Well, since we're transitioning, Nick, I'm handing over the wheel of the ship to you.
Good grief.
You are the captain now. Oh.
The second time you handed me the
Like, wait,
wheel. and
nope,
paused.
never mind.
Second time. Are
I'm ripping the wheel back. Jesus, take the wheel.
you calling yourself Jesus?
I'm just saying. Someone's
Not the
gotta run
first
this
time.
thing. Last season, we did our annual bets podcast where we fired off some takes and we bet each other. Follow our social channels as we are about to start paying off those bets, and we will be tweeting, Facebooking, Instagramming pictures and videos, and some of these bets will be paid off on the podcast. A few of my favorites. Justin was so confident in a bet, and Tayler took it. And Justin was talking all this trash about how Tayler was going to have to pay this bet off, and Justin lost.
Feels right.
Tayler gets to go through last season's game logs and pick one game
Of Shay's
of
outfit.
a Shea tunnel fit that Justin has to recreate.
Oh, I can't.
I have no memory of this. I cannot.
I do
I
have
cannot
memory
claim
of this.
this.
I have the
Burn the
receipts.
recordings.
Hey, for what it's worth, next Sunday I have to come on this podcast and
Even
rap
better.
a verse from a Trey 1K song.
I do know that.
Another
I do
Taylor
remember
bet,
this.
by the way.
I'm kind of excited.
I've
Other
kind of
things
been
include
sitting on
like
some bars for the past year.
Justin.
J1K over here.
I have to send Justin 3 packs of double stuffed Oreos
Now we're
that his
talking.
children are going to absolutely annihilate, including the infant.
Justin gets so much food. I was going through
Justin owes me a 3 patty burger. I don't know who lost that bet because I might have a heart attack. I'm excited. Tons of really fun stuff. Taylor has to take me to an OKC Dodgers baseball game and buy me whatever I want from the concession stand.
Wow. That might be the most expensive bet of all.
That might be
I
a
don't know how much
punishment
money
for
Taylor
you.
makes, but it's better than me.
Do you really want to go sit through a Dodgers game?
We're going to stay for like 1 inning.
Yeah, I was gonna say
Just
we won't
long
be
enough
there
for me to eat, and then we're going to leave.
Taylor will swing some work tickets for free. It won't be an expensive bet.
Probably. Taylor has to
Honestly,
go.
that's kind of
One of the
accurate.
first, 2 of the first 5 Thunder games this year are the Clippers
Oh,
at
yeah,
home
this is my
against
first
OKC.
one.
Taylor has to wear a Paul George jersey to that game and cheer for the Clippers the entire night.
Brutal.
I will be going to that so I can film Taylor the entire night and post social media updates. We got a ton of fun stuff coming with these bets. This year's bets podcast happens in 2 weeks. So you guys make sure you're subbed to the YouTube channel, subbed wherever you get your podcasts from, so you can tune in and hear the wild and crazy bets we make with one another.
If you have unique ideas on things you would like to see us do as
Yes.
punishments and stuff, let us know,
good
because
idea.
half the time, like we spit off this, oh, I'll take you up on that, and then we just BS something off the top of our head. Give us some cool
And
stuff.
it's always
man.
food.
It
We're
is.
always
Give
like,
us- give
I'll
us
buy
cool
you
stuff.
Chick-fil-A,
Hey,
I'll buy you Cane's, I'll buy you
listen.
this.
Listen, I think I nailed the French national anthem 2 years ago. Thank you very
That
much.
is a fair point.
100%.
Mhm.
I'm also very proud of my Trey 1K rapping verses and Justin Shea tunnel fits. But we need more recommendations like that.
Agreed.
Especially because we don't want to pay tons and tons of money for
You guys might
bets.
kick me off the podcast next Sunday whenever the cold open is just me rapping Trey 1K.
Yeesh. I might unsubscribe
Featuring
myself.
Baisley.
It's gonna be fun. I'm excited. Gotta
That's
start
awesome.
practicing.
Tattoo of Poku.
I'm gonna be pulling up to the parking lot
Oh.
of my high school, just jamming Trey 1K in the parking lot. I can't wait.
Tattoo of
Hey,
Poku.
I'm in on a Poku tat. Let's do it.
She's like, I already
We should have
two.
one that's legitimately like an uncontested tattoo. That would be
Pass.
fun. That would be fun. You can get it anywhere. You can get it on your ass
Yeah,
if
I
you
bet.
want.
I bet you'd like that, you little freak.
Jesus.
Hey,
Oh,
Taylor's the one into Aegon Targaryen, not me. Nick,
oh God.
Jesus is not taking the wheel anymore.
You
It's
sure?
off to you.
Are you sure?
Moses, let's go.
All right. So before I talk about some of the things that I noticed thematically throughout the day, anything that you guys read or watched or saw or anything else that just like popped? Like if you had one big thing that you took away from Media Day, I'm sure Taylor does. Taylor,
Oh, I have all kinds of thoughts.
what do you got?
One thing? Taylor probably has 76.
like
Taylor,
five.
Taylor, one.
So let me go ahead and share my screen here and do my my 20 slide
Presentation.
PowerPoint
Hey,
slide deck. However,
just to like back up how crazy Taylor is, in re-listening to the
crazy
Bets
Taylor
pod,
is.
he was like, "I've got a really good one," and then he went on. I'm not kidding you for 5 minutes about the Thunder average drives per game and their field goal percentage at the rim and shots at the rim. Well, I think my bet is
It's
that they're
called
going to shoot
statistics. Look it up.
3% better from the at the rim. They're going to shoot 5 more times on this many attempts. Blah blah blah. And I was like,
if you take the square root of Shea's drives
I was
per
sitting there
game
typing all of
times-
this out, and then Justin on the podcast just said, "Yeah, that's a really bad one. I don't think I want to mess with that. That's too long." And I was like, "God damn it! I just typed all of this out for Justin to shit on it."
I got confused. I do remember
Yeah.
that bet, and I got lost in the middle. I felt
I was so
was
proud of
class
myself because this
all
one's
over.
actually going to be backed by stats. I have looked it up. I've done my homework, and I went into a 10-minute
boy.
soliloquy. Kind of like Sam Presti. We're one and the same, cut from the same cloth.
Jesus. Jacob's
Basically.
Jesus. You're
I-
basically Sam Presti. I mean, come on.
I'm not going to give my biggest takeaway, Nick, but just I think this is a good way to kind of to kick things off because one of the first things that we saw prior to Media Day starting was a Thunder tweeting out or announcing their official 2022-2023 training camp roster. And my first takeaway, curious to your guys' thoughts, I went through every single name and I knew every single one. I was invested in every single one, which is very like
Sorry.
interesting based on Jacob's
This show's
downing
off the rails.
those Coke Zeros.
We're
Gonna
not
get
back
to
in
the mute quick
mid-season
enough.
form yet.
This is no, I won't get on there. Anyways, like compared to previous years, you see those last 3, sometimes 4 training camp roster spots, and it's typically like G League guys fighting for a spot, and guys that are kind of almost rewarded in a sense, trying to get some time with the Thunder and play with some of these guys, as well as occasionally you'll get a young player who the Thunder or whoever team is trying to get a second look at. Maybe didn't pan out originally, and this is their chance to kind of get a further look at them and see if they fit better in their own system, in their own team system. But this year, I'm going through every single one, and it's like we have 2 2A players that kind of fall in that category, but they're 2A players and are going to be on the team. And then you start looking at like the rest of the players, like these are all guys that the Thunder have either drafted or pretty heavily invested in. And so it's really interesting, and I think that's why we saw a lot of questions, Nick, today about roster cuts and things of that nature.
Well, Nick, speaking of roster cuts, we started pre-Media Day with a Royce Young tweet.
Mm-hmm. Did it surprise you?
Well, first, let's give the people some context. I was setting you up as the host of this show to talk about that tweet and give us context first.
Well, Ty Jerome is not going to be with the team any longer. He's not attending Media Day. He's not attending training camp. And similar to like Jermichael Green a bit, like he's not officially off the team, but the Thunder and Ty Jerome's camp are both working on his next destination. If that's a trade, great. I don't know if he has trade value. If that's a cut, which I feel more likely, that's the direction they'll go. But it sounds like there's zero chance that Ty Jerome is going to be on the team this season. So I guess 2-part question, Jacob. 1, were you surprised? And 2, do you view this as Ty and his camp got word like, hey, we're not keeping you, and they were kind of getting ahead of things?
I was a little surprised because I thought they would go through training camp first, which leads to number 2 that you just asked, Nick. I wonder if this was initiated by Ty's camp. Hey, we're in a contract year. We know you got to cut 2 guys. We know we're probably on the block. Can we try to find a better situation for Ty? I don't think the Thunder would do that. Like just preseason, before preseason, say, hey, you're going to be gone. I think they want to take it to camp and have it be competitive. I think this is initiated by Ty's side. I don't have any sourcing or anything to back that up. Just looking at it logically, that's kind of where I'm at. And I'm absolutely devastated. No more future too much sauce gifts for me. We have to hang it up and retire it now. And I am very sad about that.
Yeah, I had the same reaction, Jacob. Even if he wasn't, like Nick was saying, if he wasn't the one that was going to be cut, he's at the bottom of the roster. I think he knows where he stands on this team, and you can have some fun and make some good plays like he has for the last few years. But long term, like you said, he's in a contract year. He probably wants to find a situation where, he could be a backup guard and get some real rotation minutes, which I don't know that he's really going to get on the Thunder, especially, with the situation they're in where they're the rebuild is continuing. He's probably looking for a different situation. So I think it makes sense for both sides in this one.
Taylor, let me ask you this. Since this news came out about Ty, how does that make you feel now about Teo being one of the cuts, another point guard? Does it move those odds up, down, or stay the same?
So if we scroll down to slide 3 of my PowerPoint that I'm about to put up here on the live stream.
I've never drank before, but Taylor in this podcast might be the reason I finally crack.
As well as the Sooners. Don't pin this all on me.
I kid. I love you, Taylor. Although you're the reason you lost.
Fair enough. I take that responsibility. With Teo, I find it really interesting. Again, we can get into the actual roster cuts and our predictions, but I look at that roster and it's really, really hard to, especially with Derek Favors, his contract, the Chet injury, the role that he can play both on the court and off the floor. I think, there's a lot of players, and Derek even kind of alluded to this when he was interviewed by the Thunder. I think it's Thunder Basketball U, the official podcast of the Thunder, had their live stream going today. And Favors is really taking on a leadership role with that team. And so I don't mean to get into every single player, but because of that, it's really hard to think about, Ty's obviously one cut now. And now we're basically looking at one of Favors, one of Jerome, one of Favors, one of Teo, and one of Vít Krejci. And I think Vít's probably up there. And then we're looking at one more. So we're looking at Teo or Favors. And that's just
3 guys for one spot.
I think Teo's still my prediction, Jacob, to your question, especially like you guys have mentioned. There was a lot of talk about some of these rookies coming in who are going to be facilitators in their own right. But he does have that connection to Ousmane Dieng. He does have that connection to, again, this doesn't mean the Thunder can go and get this player, Victor Wembanyama, but there is something to say about that, right? Like Us was actually asked about that in his availability and mentioned being good friends with Victor. I don't know. There are some connections there, and there is some talent there. I'm really torn on this one. I think I'm going to go ahead and lean that I think Teo is going to be that next cut or potentially a trade, but I don't feel good about it. I'm very torn on Teo versus Favors, and I'm curious your guys' thoughts.
Tell me if I'm off base here. Training camp is the final chance for these guys that are on the block to solidify a spot. Favors, I think, has more value via his expiring contract his salary matching contract, his off the court leadership, his ability to play center. I don't think there's anything Favors can do in training camp that's going to be like, wow, we're keeping this guy. I think it's more up to Veet and Teo to prove, hey, their ceiling is so high or they've improved so much that we want one of those two over Favors. Would you guys agree with that? At that point, is it up to Veet and Teo to go get that spot over Favors?
And I wonder if that's even an inattainable training camp goal.
Right.
Can you make that much of an impression in 2 weeks?
Totally.
I don't know.
If they want if they weren't at least confident Favors was worth keeping around, that's a guy you could have bought out a long
He'd be
time
gone
ago.
already.
Okay, but playing Nick, aka Devil's Advocate, on our podcast,
playing Nick,
since he's having to host,
playing Devil's Advocate inside of a vacuum.
We love a good vacuum here at the Uncontested. I do wonder if because of some of that value you mentioned about Favors and that I just mentioned about Favors, right? He even had a little, he alluded to working on that 3-point shot. Nick, I'm curious your thoughts on those comments. Is that trade value for Derek Favors? Is Presti able to trade Derek Favors for not much? Maybe even a pretend second. But
I don't think Derek Favors saying he's working on his 3-pointers is going to move the needle at all. But
I think Presti recorded that part of the media interviews and then texted it to all the other GMs.
All 30 GMs. He actually rehearsed it with Favors before Favors came to the mic.
What do you guys take? I put this in the Slack earlier. One of the common questions, and I'm sure it was for a story somebody's building. Every player got asked about the 2 Jalen Williamses. Every single player got asked to compile quotes and get their take. Everybody had a similar, comment. It was like, oh yeah, it was tough at first, but now we got J Will or J Dub. It's some people also just call J Dub
just Dub.
Like they removed
and
the
just
J.
J. Yeah.
Derek Favors says, man, I don't know. Those guys need some nicknames or something. Like him, like that clearly indicates he hasn't been around the team much. That doesn't mean he's going to get cut from the roster or he's not part of the plans for the season. Like, what do you make of that?
Honestly, not much, because do you remember Serge Ibaka saying, who? Whenever they asked him about Mitch McGarry? And then Steven Adams, he was like, who's that, mate? Whenever they asked him about,
we're still saying who.
Fair.
With Mitch.
Yeah.
I think Mitch is saying who because he's so damn high right now. I don't read much into that at all, honestly. But speaking of the Jalen's, Nick, one interesting quote that kind of started off media day with head coach Mark Daignault. He said he wasn't surprised they drafted Jalen Williams from Arkansas. He said, I thought we would draft him. They had been high on him throughout the entire process. What do you buy into that? I mean, apparently after the draft, introducing the rookies, Sam Presti said that J-Dub had not been on their radar, really. Yeah, he kind of kicked the door in during the pre-draft process. Sounds like they had been in on J. Will for quite a while. I think that's pretty fascinating.
Well, starting with J-Dub, his story in the draft process, his head coach at Santa Clara is the former Arizona State coach that coached James Harden, and Presti's got a relationship with him. They connected late in the draft process, which really kind of opened the door for J-Dub.
It was J. Will limited based off COVID years and things of that nature. Yeah,
totally. But J. Will and Chet, one thing. So Mark's comment saying, I kind of knew all along, tells me they probably had J. Will, I don't know, hypothetically 24 on their board. And they probably knew no one was going to take him in the first round. So they're probably pretty confident this is the guy we're going to be able to take early in the second round. Same with Chet. It was Jabari. It was Paulo. There was never much talk of Chet going 1. And we heard Shea today say pre-injury, he kind of leaked this out. He was like, Chet and I actually played before it was official when he was drafted. So I think
before it was official, that's interesting wording too.
Sure,
I knew we were taking him.
Yeah. I mean, I think everybody did looking back, right. And we kind of did leading up to it as well. But not to say the Thunder are closed-minded, but I think they do enough upfront kind of homework and research and get intel around the league of who's kind of sitting where, that they probably entered draft night pretty damn confident they were going to get Chet and Jay Will.
And
Probably
I think
didn't
it's like
go ahead.
Go ahead. I was going to say, I think it's like what we've talked about before of like, I don't think Sam Presti's big board looks like anyone else's big board. Like he's just kind of doing his own thing. And I think that's a good reflection of that. Like, yes, obviously tons of teams would have loved to have Chet, but like if Jalen Williams is a second round guy on 29 teams draft boards and Sam Presti has him at 24, then he's going 24.
Totally. And it doesn't matter if there's a guy that is 28 on his board that's 20 on everybody else's board, or was like a lottery guy that slipped. Like he's not like he's sticking with his board.
Yep.
100%.
Yeah, I thought both of those comments were like infinitely fascinating today. And Nick, I think it alludes exactly to what you were saying. Like they do their homework. They've probably been watching Chet since he was like a sophomore in high school.
Oh, probably before that.
You know,
honestly.
I was gonna say like 8th grade. That's not over exaggeration.
Yeah.
And a pat on our back. We called at the beginning of last season. I don't remember if it was on a podcast or post podcast, just hanging out. A handful of us said Chet is like the ultimate Presti target. Like I bet Presti loves Chet Holmgren. And it seems like that was the thing the entire way through, and they had each other circled that entire process.
Yeah.
So maybe that leads us into another conversation, Nick. Lots of talk about a guy who wasn't at media today, Chet Holmgren.
Yep. The official word was he will do media availability later this week. He's on a scooter where like your knee is on the scooter and you kind of
shout out Thunder Legend campaign.
Yeah, exactly. Media day is like the stuff that you see for the most part is like there's a little media room, and then there's like the Thunder U podcast, but then there's also all the way throughout the stadium, there's little like radio booths and NBA photo, Giddey photo, AP photo, Bally Sports, all these different, like everything. So there's so many different stations that I think Chet probably is going to be able to do something offline without a bunch of people around, scooting around, getting bumped into, ask questions, because it really is a free for all. Like if you, the Lou Dort, the intro to our podcast with Lou Dort was just like bumping into a media day and like, hey, Lou, can I ask you a couple questions? Chet being the number 2 pick coming off of an injury, he would just get bugged all day. So that's why he wasn't there today. It's not like some weird something's wrong with him or he can't be seen in public. He's going to talk to the media later this week.
They're going to bring everything to him. It's kind of the vibe I got from listening to different people.
A lot of questions and a lot of talking about Chet Holmgren, even though he wasn't there, Nick.
Yeah. I think one of the main themes that was brought up was how can he improve as a rookie without being on the court, which I think all of us probably thought that's not some groundbreaking question. Yeah. And whether it's like Mike Muscala working with him, and Mike actually said they worked out in Minnesota together. They're both from Minnesota. So that relationship's already been sparked. Mark made a comment. I don't remember if it was Film Junkie or Basketball Junkie, basically said Chet's just going to be in the film room all the time watching film. Even if he's not on the court, he can still take things away and figure things out. We've seen a lot of guys, we've talked about Blake Griffin, we've talked about Ben Simmons, all these guys that were high draft picks, and just sitting on the sideline and being in the film room, being in practice, you see the speed of the game and it's a little bit easier to transition in your like rookie year 2. But a lot of optimism, right? Like Sam even said, this isn't a developmental roadblock. It's a roadblock and a tactical roadblock in a different way. His teammates seem to be pretty open to, he's going to improve a bunch. He's going to lift weights, eat food, gain weight, get used to the game. So I think even though he wasn't at media day, he's not going to play. Like the spirits are high and he's going to be fine in the long run.
A lot of guys said they played with him and that like he's freaking awesome and they're super excited to get him on the court, which just makes it suck even more.
So much more.
That was my exact same feeling, Jacob. Like, and I think it's kind of what you were getting at, Jacob. Like there were so many, and Nick, kind of chime in here with if I get any players wrong, but like I know Aaron Wiggins was very, very high on Chet. I know Shea was asked about him and has some very high comments about him.
Lou Dort was like a poet talking about the defensive anchor Chet could have been, and we know what he does on that end, and like he talked about what they could do as like a defensive duo, and I'm like, God, that is so true. That would be so
Imagine
awesome.
if you take Kevin Durant and Rudy Gobert and put them together. That's Chet Holmgren.
Jeez.
Said Lou. Not really. But
Another
he did.
thing,
He was very high on Chet.
yeah, another thing you kind of mentioned there, Nick, that Chet can spend this season like lifting weights, eating, getting bigger. It is time for hashtag muscle watch.
Yes.
Heyo.
So we saw them on a phone screen. Nick, you saw them in person. Who's making gains?
I think number 1, Trey Mann.
Dude, that video you took walking behind him, that man's triceps are the size of my goddamn
Dude,
head.
We forget
He got yacked.
he's a legit 6'5".
Yeah,
A
he
legit
looks tall too. He looks
He
really
is
tall.
He's a tall dude. It's not even that he's like got these bodybuilder arms, but like he looks like an NBA player. Last year he was super skinny. This year he looks like an NBA player. He's got a whole bunch of new ink. He's got a whole new hairdo. I think he's gonna go out there and just ball.
Weren't
Well,
you
Nick-
the one that asked him about gaining weight, Nick? Was that you?
Yeah, very. First
And he
question.
said, "Thanks for noticing."
"Yeah, he's
Thanks for noticing.
he is
Big mood.
and most
He
players,
loves the uncontested. I hung out with him in the Lowe's parking lot.
Hey, and for what it's worth,
he thanked Nick for his question. I mean,
the first time he played a G League game, I covered that game.
there we
And the
go.
post game scrum, I
Yeah,
I
and he
said your
came up-
defense looked really good tonight. And afterwards he was like, "Yo, really? It was good though?" Like looking for that affirmation. So him
Wait,
saying
like,
he appreciates you noticing the gains, like
That's awesome.
it's
What a guy.
This is vibe with Trey. But yeah, Trey looked yoked.
he's also
He
the best
told-
interview, I think.
Ooh,
Most
that's
guys
interesting.
give like I think any media day or press conference, when you hear the question, if you're like hit pause, you could probably guess like 70% of the time generally what the answer is going to be. Something just like scripted, generic. Trey was asked about, what have you done to gain weight? And he was like, yeah, well, I've started eating clean, 3 meals a day. I'm eating this, and this. The training staff gave me this little chart that tells
Protein
me
before
if
bed.
I'm trying to gain weight, I need to eat this much, this much, this much. So I'm tracking that, and I'm scooping my protein every night. I'm like, damn, you don't have to go into this detail, but we really appreciate it.
That's awesome.
He was talking with he was on the Thunder Basketball U live stream before he went and met with the media. One thing that he mentioned, he said specifically he felt that he has gained at least 5 pounds. So there you go. Muscle watch.
He looks yoked, and I freaking love it. I think that man is going to
I think it'll be
hoop
good.
this
Yeah,
season.
I think it's gonna be
All
really
right. Who's next on hashtag muscle watch, Nick?
good. Can I do a flip? A reverse muscle watch?
Skinny watch?
Skinny watch?
Sure.
2 of them, Mike Muscala and JRE, are
Mm.
both skinny.
That's
Which-
funny because JRE is the biggest guy on the team as
And
far as
it's-
weight.
Yeah.
It's scary
240.
that those are 2 guys that are going to be asked to play center a lot of time. But it is what it is. Mike looked definitely skinny. JRE is not like, he doesn't look skinny. He doesn't look thick anymore, if that makes
Yeah.
sense. He looks just more athletic. But back to the muscle watch. I think the obvious one's Poku weighing in at 210.
20 pounds?
He
20 pounds heavier?
He doesn't look big, but he doesn't look as skinny.
He doesn't look like a skeleton wrapped in skin anymore.
Right.
He doesn't look
Yeah.
like Schmoll.
Yeah. He said that, he said, I put in the work. I just hope it translates on the floor. We talked about this, I think, last pod, actually. Even if he does gain the weight, he's got to like translate onto the floor with the decision making and the IQ, right?
It's a mindset. Physicality is a mindset. I hope he has it.
You can't just get big. Lou actually talked about that. He was asked about like, you're a guy that's not afraid just to go in there and bully your way in. Like, how do you get that mindset? For Lou, he was like, well, I've kind of been humongous since I started playing basketball. So, but for other guys, like it's a real mindset. Like you can get as big as you want, but if you're going to shy away from contact, it doesn't matter. At the end of the
Yep.
day.
Totally.
100%.
You know what I was most excited about? We haven't talked about it yet. I don't know how we haven't gotten to it.
Well, but before you get there, is there anyone else on hashtag muscle watch?
I think Shea's got to be on there.
Shea looks like his arms have gotten, if not bigger, more defined.
I saw somebody tweeted out, I don't recall who, like comparisons between last year's training camp roster and this year's, and noted the poundage difference. And Shea was like 14 pounds higher than last year.
I don't know.
Second to Poku.
Shea is like, if you watch some of like the Instagram reposts he does from his workouts and stuff, he is very defined. Like Jacob just mentioned, he's kind of cut up, but his like waist and torso is so small. Like he looks very defined, but I don't think like from a mass standpoint is that big of a guy still.
What about Darius Baisley?
He looked bigger, but I think Baze has always been, in my opinion, like the perfect wing build. He's going to be asked to play a lot of small ball center this year.
You saying Baze has a perfect body? That's okay.
I
think Shea has a perfect. I look at Shea and I'm like, that is my motivation to go lift today.
Nick does kind of look like Adam Levine. I'm just saying.
Oh my God. I hate you a lot.
Use the meme.
Use the DMs at night.
Oh
That's right.
Gosh.
Hey, for what it's worth, Baze did mention in his media availability that he wanted to, was it get to 220? Yeah, 220 and then sustain it. And
he wants to play at 220.
Done a good job. Now, Justin, to your point, shout out Clemente. He tweeted this out. I have the screenshot. So this is what Poku was, or sorry, this is what players were listed at last year compared to this year. Poku up 30 pounds, 190 to 210. That's
20.
Pretty fascinating. SGA up 14 pounds. I found that one interesting as well. 181 to 195. Now Teo plus 10, JRE plus 10, Baze plus 8, 208 to 216. So a little less than that 220 mark, which is why I brought it up here. But then Giddey up 6 pounds and Dort up 5 pounds per last season. So shout out Clemente.
I love it. Can we get into the one important thing though?
Yes. I have another thought, but I want you to go first.
There's only one thing that I left media day thinking, holy shit, I'm actually super pumped. And it's not something that's like we had never thought about, but it's something I'd forgot about. And it's Josh Giddey saying, when I found out we hired Chip England, not only was I pumped, but my agent texts me saying, this is huge for you. It's awesome that this franchise is putting forth resources towards a guy that can help you. And Josh was like, Josh isn't dumb. They're probably paying Chip a bag. And then Mark even said he's like a part-time guy. He's not going to be at every practice, not be at every game. But Josh said, seriously, Josh said we are in the gym 2 to 3 times a day.
A day, yeah. I found it interesting also, Nick. I was going to bring that
watch up. Or the BS, I'm committed for 5 years, or I want to retire. I don't care. Josh Giddey's jumper directly impacts the ceiling of this team for the next decade.
Yes.
Yep.
And I had kind of forgotten that the Thunder hired Chip England. Transparently. So that was a nice reminder. Yeah, but it's huge. Like you said, I mean, if it's still an if, like just because you hire Chip England doesn't mean you're suddenly going to, add 5 percentage points to your 3-point shooting, but it doesn't hurt. It's a positive sign. He's got a long enough track record. And I think you said it, like it's one of the biggest glaring weaknesses in Giddey's game. Makes him a totally different player if he's a knockdown 3-point shooter.
Totally. I mean, that's the difference between him being just this, I mean, frankly, Ben Simmons type of guy that's like high rebound numbers, high assist numbers, jumbo guard. I think really Giddey will never be this defender Ben Simmons is, but could be a solid defender. But if the shot's not there, you are just so limited in the modern NBA.
Especially with this team and how they're constructed. I agree. Now, Nick, that was one of the screenshots I took, and this was actually from you. I was so happy when we brought him in. Said Josh, I don't shy away from needing to improve as a shooter. I think he mentioned, he told his agent, and he just had a big smile on his face. And 2 to 3 times a day in the gym with Chip England, especially if he's not going to be there every single game. Like, it just kind of shows you provided a little insight into what England's going to have, the impact he's going to have on this team moving forward. It's very much a specific role with the Thunder. He's not going to be on the bench every single game. He'll be breaking down film sometimes with certain players. I don't think he will even work with every single player. I mean, he will at times, right? But it's very focused. And I think it was a very specific sales pitch that Presti had for England to get him to come here. I just found that very fascinating, and I'm very excited to see that play out.
On the flip, I would bet you money. This isn't the bets pod, and there's no way we could ever find this out.
I would bet you money.
But I would bet you money Josh Giddey being a guy he could work with was a big reason that Chip came here.
Yeah.
Agreed.
I'd guarantee it.
That's
Totally.
awesome. Speaking of Josh, one thing I found fascinating kind of fits my my narrative too.
No.
I'm looking at Thunder training camp roster right now. Darius Baisley played a good amount of center last year, right? And then primarily only played center or the 4. Technically, they don't have like a 3 and a 4. They just play wings. Baisley right now is listed at 6'9", 216. Josh is listed at 6'8", 216.
I noticed that too, Jacob.
Josh can play the 4, guys.
Oh, no doubt. No doubt.
Like, I just think the lineup versatility so important. Which
on offense, like I'm not sure they're even going to have. They won't have a 4. You know what I mean? That's what's so exciting.
Yeah.
Now, to your point, he can defend 4s. I shouldn't say eventually. He'll do some.
I think he can defend 4s right now.
Also,
there's
growing
less than a
pains.
handful of 4s in the league that I feel uncomfortable with Josh guarding.
Kind of like
Jacob-
what we talked about with Chet guarding true 5s. I think that's fair.
Who trivia question.
Uh-oh.
Who led the team in rebounding last year?
Josh Giddey.
He can play the 4.
He can play the 4.
You can play the
Speaking of, not to get us too far away from Media Day stuff, but a thought that I had today, just driving back to work from lunch, belly full of turkey sandwich,
That's not what I was expecting.
scrolling through Nick's Twitter feed while driving down the street. I don't suggest doing that.
Seems safe.
I was all over the damn place. Jesus, take the wheel once again.
Nick, take the wheel.
In a
Nick,
school
take the wheel.
zone, smoking a pack of
Where's Nick
Newports.
when you need him?
Golly.
Had an old English
Yep.
40 in my hand.
45 through the school zone. Are you ready, kids?
Oh my God.
Pouring one out for Chet Holmgren. To your point, Justin.
I just had this stupid thought. And before I tell you the thought, I want to ask you guys a question. We've talked a lot about lineups this year. We know Chet's out. Let's imagine Shea. Let's just say Shea starting game 1. Okay. What is a lineup that could start that we haven't really flirted with yet that may be like, oh, what are they doing? But makes sense at the same time. Do you guys follow this?
Yeah,
I do.
I've got one.
Okay.
I do too. Taylor, you go first because yours is probably going to be blasphemous.
The one I thought of was blasphemous.
If we go to
and so I'm
basketball
excited.
reference and we break down the per 36
guy.
and per 100s and
grief.
divide them
I'm
by
gonna choke you.
just kidding. Just kidding. I do wonder, there's been talk about the 3-guard lineup, right? That year with Chris Paul. And after today, again, I'm as high on J-Dub as I have ever been. I love Jalen Williams out of Santa Clara. But I wonder if Trey Mann is that guy at a certain point this season. Just, again, playing with some of those lineups like you mentioned, Jacob. So I'm thinking about a lineup like Shea, Trey Mann, Lou, Josh Giddey, and then you throw in JRE or Baisley or whoever it may be. I really don't have a specific quote-unquote 5 picked out there. I'm kind of cool with any of those players there. Even Poku. Poku looks like he gained a little bit of weight. Let's throw Poku in there and get just like super crazy. If he can hit outside shots consistently. But those 4 specifically are lineups that I'm thinking about that could be very, very fun. I think the biggest thing there, we know Trey's gained weight. We know he's honestly an elite space creator, but he's going to have to be able to knock down some catch and shoot shots, right? Especially playing alongside guys like Giddey and Shea. So depending on how that catch and shoot 3-point shot specifically looks, I think that could be an elite and deadly lineup.
Justin, Nick, a starting lineup that would really raise your eyebrows, but then when you think about it, could make a bit of sense.
Mine is very different than Taylor's.
Okay.
Very, very different.
Nick's going big.
Yes, exactly. Not, I mean, there's no way to go big with this team.
Oos. He's throwing his oos there, and I get it.
No.
No?
And again, this is not what we expect, but what wouldn't shock you and would kind of make sense when you think about it, right? I think Josh, Lou, Shea, we're all three. We're gonna put all those three guys in our lineups.
Mm-hmm.
Kenrich Williams at the 4, and Derek Favors at the 5. You see a lot of teams in the NBA. The starting lineup doesn't necessarily mean the guys that start play the most minutes. You start Favors, he plays like 6 minutes, and then may not come in until mid-second quarter.
Nick, if like the Thunder miraculously found themselves in the first round of the playoffs this season, that to me feels like a closing playoffs lineup. Given where the roster looks right now, I get that.
Yeah.
Justin,
Favors could get cut. It's like,
right, yeah, exactly.
Maybe he'll start, maybe he'll get cut.
Exactly, or traded.
No, I don't. I'm just ready to hear yours.
Okay. Well, before we do mine, because I just, not to add suspense to the podcast, but I just remember we got to do the ad read.
We got to do ad reads.
My
I'm glad you
God.
So let's do
remembered
that.
I
We'll talk
forgot.
about it when we get back.
What a jerk.
What's up, Thunder fans? This is Jacob from the Uncontested Podcast, and I'm here to let you know that we have fully redesigned our merch store to get you the best Thunder swag available. Just visit cottonbureau.com and search the Uncontested Podcast to find all of our new designs. That's cottonbureau.com and search the Uncontested Podcast to find new drops like Josh Giddey's Wizard of Oz or an ode to the Trey Man Step Back. We've also got all the classics like Dortle Combat, Liu Tang Clan, and everyone's favorite MVP, Shea Gilgeous-Alexander. The best part? You can get any design and the style of apparel you want. So if you're gearing up for the summer and want a tank top, needing a hoodie for the winter in Australia, or you're wanting a Pokemon onesie for your baby, we've got you covered. Make sure to go to cottonbureau.com and search the Uncontested Podcast to get your new Thunder gear today. And we are back.
Tell us the lineup.
Here's the lineup, guys.
Yes.
It makes sense, I think, except they open the season against the freaking Minnesota Timberwolves, which has the biggest starting front court in the NBA. Why couldn't it be Shea, Dort, Josh, Poku, Baisley?
Yikes.
Poku Baisley.
Yikes.
You want to talk about the two best rim protectors on the team? Statistically.
It's Poku and Baisley.
A 6'9" and a 7-foot guy.
I mean, let's
again,
get really...
against like the Minnesota Timberwolves, that's bad. They're going to get
real bad.
But,
yeah.
I mean, it kind of makes some sense, doesn't it?
Well, let's get really crazy and do Shea, Giddey, Jang, Poku, Baisley.
Okay,
I don't think they're not going to start Dort. I think Shea, Lou, Josh
starting
are
lineup.
automatic starters.
My question for Jacob, and I know this is like a hypothetical lineup, but who is your? It's a positionless game, so that can't be your answer. Who is your power forward in that lineup? Because I don't think it's Poku.
Poku's your power forward. Baisley's your center.
I don't think Poku plays, but I just don't think he's got it in him. I think he's a true guard wing.
I think that's fair, but I know you said I can't use positionless basketball. I don't think the Thunder care.
I agree. Totally.
You know?
And that was a Presti quote and a Mark quote the past 7 days is like conventional thinking gets you in the middle. You got to be unconventional and do things that are not normal to find that like high level success. Like the Warriors, when their dynasty started, The MO wasn't let's jack 53s a game, but they made that the league.
Yeah. No, it's fair. I thought about that today. Like, Poku got a little bit bigger. Baisley got a little bit bigger. Like, if they both have good training camps, it could happen. Like, I'm not going to counter that. And I just think that'd be incredibly fascinating.
It would be incredibly fascinating. 100%. And
I don't think it's going to happen.
It could happen at some point during the season. Is that like a regular starting lineup? Maybe not. But for a game in mid-January, sure. Why not?
Yeah. I thought it was interesting. I don't know what made me think of that. But Nick, back to our host, Nick. While eating a sandwich. Now, the sandwich is already down the hatch. This was whenever I was texting and driving. Possibly, I don't know, halfway in the ditch. Nick, we did not talk about Shai Gilgeous-Alexander much yet and his media availability. He went first today. Is that correct?
He did. After Mark, he went first.
Okay, first player. Sorry, first player. Give us a little bit of a rundown of what Shai said. Anything that you took away?
Only thing I took away is he walked on stage with no problem. That's not that's the main thing I took away. Like when he walked in the room, I don't think anybody just naturally thought like, oh, that's a guy that's got an MCL injury. Like he just walked, there was stairs up to the stage. He got onto the stage, he sat down, and there was no like limp. There was no anything. So not that he's going to play opening night. I'm not sitting here saying like Shai's healthy, he's ready to go. But it's definitely like it lines up with the backstory that he like continued the workout, woke up sore. It's not as serious.
Reevaluate in 2
kind of
weeks.
thing. Like he was walking just fine. Shai just remains optimistic. Like he's here to rebuild with the Thunder. He truly thinks they're headed in the right direction. He's committed to the 5 years. He spoke highly of the rookies, talked about J-Dub. I actually asked him, you guys are both 6'6", versatile, do a lot of things, guard, wing, whatever you want to be, pass, shoot, whatever. He's like, yeah, he's got it in him. Like he speaks highly of everybody that he's asked about.
You know what he's got in him?
That dog in him.
He got that dog in him.
But just like the players that were asked about Shai, like the leadership kept coming up. And not only is he a good leader, he's became a better leader. And I forget, it may have been Mark that said this. It had to have been Mark. That like everybody wants to be a leader or like a manager at their company or a VP because it's like this big position. But the higher up you go, the more BS you deal with, the higher expectations. And it's just flat out not fun. Like being a leader sounds fun, but it's not fun. And he says Shai embraces that, the responsibility that he takes on. All the players say he's becoming a better leader. And just based on his media quotes, like you can't have a leader that is in there like talking crap or like saying, oh, I'm sick of losing. Like he embodies Thunder culture and the rebuild. And I think that whether it's Sam being transparent with him or Shai just truly buying into it, like he is truly all in.
One thing that I love, and this was directly from his media availability. I don't have the direct quote, Nick, and you might have it. But he was talking about like, I don't always have to necessarily be the vocal leader. I can lead by example. And then he continued to go into that quote and talk about leading specific to like getting to know your players and then leading accordingly, right? Like this guy might need some verbal encouragement. This guy is, I know, let's just use J-Dub as an example. Shai did not, but let's use him as an example in the situation. Like I know he's watching me, so I'm going to lead by example in that situation. I just think that's very, very wise of Shai. Shows his, like you said, Nick, his continued development as a leader and being able to recognize that at such a young age. This is something we mentioned on this podcast so many times over the past however many years now, 2-3 seasons, but the Chris Paul effect. Yeah. I think that is definitely something that Shai picked up from Chris Paul. And I think we're seeing it more and more as he gets older and older.
Well, it's special. Like if you ask any great leader in sports or outside of sports, every person is influenced or managed very differently. And I think like 2 years ago, Shea, when he took over the team, was like, he is the leader by just flat out being the best guy. And like, whether he wanted it or not, that's what he's going to be. I think he's learned over the last 2 years, kind of like Taylor's talked about, this guy needs this guy needs this. And I can make all of my teammates better on the court or off the court because I have a deep understanding and a mature understanding of how I can lead each player differently. And that is like, for a 23-year-old, is that what he is? 23? Like that is
24,
very advanced.
but still
Very
point
advanced.
still stands.
Yeah, totally.
That's awesome.
I think along those lines, the other comments from Shea that stood out to me today was he said something about that long-term vision that Presti has for the team and being bought into it. And he said, we're not going to be losing for much longer, which I think is an interesting wording. He didn't say we're not going to be losing anymore, which would imply like, all right, we're gunning for it now. It was, a future implication.
Yeah.
And I think 2 years ago, our big takeaway from Media Day was like, God, this team's going to suck. Like every comment from everybody just reeked of like, this team is racing to the bottom. Nick, I'm curious your takeaway. In addition to Shea's comments, Presti had some comments the other day. We had some more comments from guys today. How do we feel about that in regards to where this team's at coming out of this Media Day?
I know what I signed up for when I signed a 5-year extension. I think he said something about not losing much longer, or losing sucks, something. And I don't think we're going to be losing much longer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, I think we talked about it last pod a little bit. Like, I think summer of 2023, everybody is like penciled that in as like the summer of Thunder. Like Presti's going to push chips in. If it works out that way, totally. But with CBA, who knows how the season goes, how lottery luck goes. I do think summer of 2023 could be the first like timeline point where something big could happen. Like it would not shock me at all if this time next year we're talking about maybe not a Donovan Mitchell level trade, but a big trade that kind of puts the Thunder in that up and coming conversation. But if CBA works out in a way where Presti's like, oh, I don't like this, I'm going to wait a little bit, or lottery luck doesn't go well, or someone else gets injured, or something happens, like I don't think the Thunder are committed to 2023, and I don't think that Thunder fans should take Shea's comments of I don't think we're going to be losing much longer as like, oh, Shea's giving us insight that like next summer it's over, like we're going all in. I think if the dice falls how the Thunder hope it does, for sure. But if Thunder fans take those comments as this is our last year of losing, you might be setting yourself up for some sadness.
I kind of interpreted that quote as like, I think me and my teammates are better basketball players and we're going to be better. Not like, oh,
even
this cryptic idea of we're going to go get, like, I just think he kind of thinks we're good and we're going to prove it type of thing,
But every quote's read differently by everybody. And that
100%.
quote, whether you're a fan or someone that covers the team or someone that's an NBA fan that doesn't know much about the Thunder, or just my dad texted me this afternoon and said, where's Josh Giddey from? He like saw something on TV and asked where Josh Giddey was from because he saw his accent. Like everybody's going to see that quote in a different capacity and think something differently of it. But I think you're right, Jacob. Like you have to slice and dice it that way for sure.
100%. Any more Media Day thoughts, guys, before we take a trip through the comment section?
I have 3 actual rapid fires, and they're actual rapid fires.
Oh,
they're
sure.
actual rapid fires. I'm
gonna put a timer on my phone.
Get a timer.
3 questions. How much time?
I will be under a minute. I do want your guys' thoughts on these.
Under a minute total?
So yeah, under a minute.
No chance.
Timer starts.
Ready,
now.
Set, go. I did mention Teo Maledon earlier in his relationship to Ousmane Dieng, but Lou Dort said he's really connected with Us in the offseason. That's from our own Nick Crane from our account. Kenrich Williams mentioned his locker being next to Chet, which I think is huge, especially with Chet being out this season. Having a leader like Kenrich, a veteran, next to him in the locker room, I think it's going to be huge for him. And then also Kenrich Williams' comments on OKC. This is a direct quote. He said, "The whole organization, from top to bottom, the front office, the coaches, the players, the city. My family loves it here. There's not enough money to beat peace of mind. And that's what I have here in OKC." All three of those stood out to me.
43 seconds.
Woo, Taylor!
You sounded like those guys
Mr.
that are
Efficient.
rapid fire on like Red Zone or something. The touchdown at the end of the day, they get through all of them. My last thing, and Jacob, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this because you've talked to this guy multiple times at a personal level. Mark talked about with the coaching changes that they had. I actually hadn't thought of it this way. So for those that don't know, Grant Gibbs, who coached the Blue last year when Jacob was covering the team,
A couple years
ago, promoted to assistant coach of the Thunder, which was the exact move that Mark Daignault made in like 2014 or so. Went from head coach of the Blue to assistant coach. I asked him, like, what advice do you have for Grant? And like, what was the biggest transition? What I wasn't thinking about was the flip side, where Cam Woods, who was an assistant for the Thunder, became head coach of the Blue. It was kind of a swap. And he had a great quote about, not only are we developing players, we're developing people internally. And they both have unique opportunities where Grant's never coached the NBA level. So it's a new perspective for him. If his career takes him to whatever it might be on a different team, it's a great opportunity for him. On the flip side, some like outside of the basketball world might consider that a demotion, going from the NBA to the G League. But Mark was like, Cam has never had head coaching experience. So although he's going down to a lower competition level, he has a chance to be a head coach, which could open up doors in the future. And so it's just interesting. We always talk about like the Thunder are so good at leveraging the Blue and the Thunder system, and they're so similar. They run the same sets, same plays, so it's seamless. The same goes for the coaching staff and the front office and guys that flip-flop back and forth and get promoted. Like they're almost building a farm system of front office execs and coaches and players that are ultimately going to become guys on the Thunder one day, which is it's super. It makes sense, but I never thought of it that way. It was interesting to hear Mark's thoughts.
I've thought about that, and I thought about that specifically today, Nick. Lou Dort, undrafted, G League, two-way, grinds up into the NBA level, gets a contract, really progresses. Mark Daignault, college, G League, NBA assistant, NBA head coach. Nick Collison, former player, comes in, shadow Sam Presti, ends up like representing the Thunder at the lottery, works his way up. Countless
Wiggins.
guys in the video department, the scouting department, all of this. I mean, hell, Derek Murray, who we've had on the podcast, working in the ticket office, scouting, working his way up. It's not about player development. It's about people development. And that is a culture. 100% that is a culture. I find it incredibly fascinating. And Grant Gibbs, he hasn't been an official assistant on the Thunder. He's been on the second row bench with them frequently. He's going to be awesome. I love that guy. Talk to him a lot. He's really, really good. He fits the Thunder to a T. Like just to a T. The way he talks, the way he thinks. Just an awesome dude. I think he is going to be incredible. I'll never forget. I was there for Grant Gibbs' first ever head coach of the G League, of the NBA Blue game. And then like 4 weeks later, I was back. And the first game, he's just managing his guys. He's saying like, hey, that's a travel. And then like sending, and then 4 weeks later I come and I hear him yelling to the refs, what the fuck is that? This is some bullshit. And I was like, he's getting comfortable. It was really cool. Like he's a great dude. I'm super excited for him. I find that really fascinating, Nick.
Yeah. I mean, it speaks to why every I don't know if I'd say every. There's got to be one or two cases where it's not, but most people, players, coaches, whatever, that come to Oklahoma City always have good things to say when they leave.
100%. Justin, anything else before we hit the comments?
I am excited.
Wow.
Wow. Same.
Wow.
How's that for rapid fire, Taylor?
Holy cannoli.
Holy cannoli.
All right, let's hit some comments. Eamon says Justin is lucky that Russ isn't on the team anymore. That way you don't have to replicate a Russ fit, just a Shea fit.
Oh, you just wait.
Could have worn a skirt.
Kieran was the one that says get a tattoo of Poku.
A+ suggestion.
100%.
But you have to get it like down your entire forearm, like elbow to wrist.
I'm in.
Long boy gang.
What else do we have in here? What do you guys think about Lindy Waters' future with the team? Haven't heard you talk much about him this off season. My thoughts is there's just too many mouths to feed. He's going to stay in a two-way. I don't know how much NBA burn he gets early in the season until the Thunder transition into what's the word they used?
Reposition.
Development.
Yeah. No, I think that's pretty spot on. We'll see him more later on in the season. I can see Dagnall rewarding him with like very spot minutes early on just because he's been here. He's doing the right things, but I think that's pretty correct.
He's got a cool man bun.
He does, yeah. Growing that hair out.
So question before we move on. If the Thunder want to retain one of the guys, they have to cut. It's not as easy as just like, let's move Veet to a two-way. They've got to like go through waivers. There's a whole process. Got to make sure no other NBA team claims them, etc. But let's just say they cut Veet for the example. Do you think if they were like, we're cutting Veet, assuming he clears waivers and processes, we can sign him to a two-way? Are they cutting Eugene or are they cutting Lindy to clear that spot?
I would
Probably Eugene.
Yeah, that would be my thought as well.
Number
like
97.
He's a big dude. He's big.
He's a big dude.
I think as a uniform guru that Justin is, you got to appreciate the 97.
Love the 97. And honestly, Baisley's 55 just because it's so ugly.
Didn't Baze say there was no reason he'd change? He just needed to change, but it's because it's Chet's number.
I asked him that one. I was like so excited to ask him because I thought he'd have some cool like my uncle's
55.
brother played for the Pistons and he's like something cool, you know. He was like, no, I just felt like it was
new
time
year,
for
new
a
me.
change. I was like, all right, well, sounds good.
More of the comments. Shea Gorgeous Alexander. Am I right, Jacob? Yeah. Dude's got a body. Kind of late for the bets. One of the bets, loser has to read Jonathan Isaac's book and write a full review for the pod.
That's a good one.
So perfect.
That's a really good one. Do you guys see what I put in the Slack?
Yes.
Vince Carter has played a game more recently than Jonathan Isaac.
It's insane.
Oh, that's wild. Looking at Oos on the Thunder Basketball Ustream, I really think he can fill out similarly to Giannis. Hey, keep your fingers crossed, my guy. We have, I want to see a Shea, Trade, Dort, Giddey, Muscala lineup. That's defense
fun.
And Dort. I like that.
Let's do it.
Someone says, I'm far more excited for the season after hearing the player interviews. I would agree.
Kool-Aid, Meek Leak.
Yep. Nick was mentioning what next season's trade could look like. This comment says maybe more of a Jarrett Allen type trade than a Spida Mitchell type trade.
Yes. That is a perfect comparison.
The Cavs are who I keep like looking ahead to as a Thunder fan. You know, they brought in Jarrett Allen, then they won like 40 something games and like, wow, okay, they have some potential. Then now Evan Mobley, Donovan Mitchell, those are big time changes. And that gets me real excited for the future of the Thunder.
Someone says CP3's influence on Shea, super important.
Facts.
That's based off our leadership talk. And then lastly, after seeing the guys and some of the body work they've been doing, does that change how you feel about the roster crunch? And does anyone have any spicy takes who might get a roster spot or not? My vote is Derek Favors is getting the spot.
I think so too. And
There's too many reasons.
I wanted to be like kind of spicy, like pre-media availability, and say that like Jalen Williams out of Arkansas maybe could be one of those guys who, like, you know what, we're
that
not
ain't
going to give
happening.
you a roster spot, right? Yeah, and but you play in the G League, we'll bring you up next year, whatever it may be. Sort of a Josh Houston situation, but obviously a little different there. Not happening after what we heard today. Not happening at all.
I like Favor staying.
Yeah.
Agreed.
So that means Teo and Veet.
Yep.
Teo and Veet are gone.
Darn.
Oh, Viter's a.
Awesome. Gentlemen, anything else? We've potted for an hour and 10 minutes now. Parting thoughts before we hit training camp and start getting post-practice quotes, and then 7 days, first preseason game.
I really, 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 really wish that Chet was not hurt. And that was like my biggest takeaway from today, honestly. Like you said, he kept coming up in interview after interview, and I wished that he wouldn't, because I want to see him
It's
play
like
basketball.
seeing all the pictures of your ex-girlfriend with a new guy after you broke up, except the new guy is a scooter and a broken leg. I don't know. It just makes me sad.
Oh, boy.
Hey, thank you guys so much for tuning in to the Uncontested. Basketball season is back, baby. It's time. Hey, as you are gearing up for a new season of Thunder basketball, DM us and get an Uncontested hat. Thunder U. Limited supply, so make sure you get it quick. Also, go drop a 5-star rating so you can get either one of our new Uncontested stickers. Just screenshot your 5-star rating, DM it to us along with your address. I will mail one to you. Just sent out a few more today, actually. Don't forget, Wednesday night, we will be here live. Sunday night, we're live. Then it is post-season, or not post-season, post-game basketball. Post-season's not for a while yet, folks. We'll be here
2025.
we'll be here with you every step of the way. We cannot wait. Until then, have a great Tuesday. We'll be back with you on Wednesday, maybe with some more quotes from what's happening at training camp. Until then, and as always, Thunder up.